Jeff, you're
The lecture begins. I'm going to go through a few things that I found. Part of them I found while I've done testing for ArcaOS. Part of it is just stuff that I've run across through using OS2 for many, many years. We'll start with the OS2 install. Couple of little things. If you don't use an external DVD drive, change the USB drives to 0 so you don't end up with that phantom drive, which actually broke the install a couple of times for me where we looked for the wrong drive. So just something to do quickly. And if you have a driver trap, I know there were people who were having trouble with the FAT32 driver trapping when it was booting from here. You can edit the config.sys file. You can go in and simply rem the driver out.
Just a hint, not Alt F2, Alt F4.
Oh, no, this is for both.
But the problem is, if the system boots very quickly, you won't see if it happens too quickly what driver blows it up. If you do Alt F4, you can select.
I just go back and Alt F4 if that happens.
Yeah, okay, just
mine. Yeah, I've got a T42, 43. What do you want? It doesn't boot very quickly. Go ahead. Some more things on the install. An interesting thing I saw in OS2 World for the GTP disks. Someone was having trouble with a Sony laptop where if they took the Windows off and then used the recovery to reinstall their Windows, it turned it back into a GTP disk.
What is a GTP disk, please?
It's something that doesn't have it doesn't have a master boot record. It's a different disk structure than what OS2 is looking for. Yeah.
It's GPT.
That's right. Sorry.
Quit partitioning.
Yeah, so I can't type either. It's been a problem with actually AirBoot and DFC and LVM will break them so they're unreadable, particularly if they're encrypted. So you want to keep all those tools away from them. I guess AirBoot and DFC have been fixed, or at least worked around. Yeah. But there was also that post that I found very interesting. Is someone found a way actually to change the Windows to a master boot record in place. Now you'll have to go out and look at the post because I don't even have a Windows box to try it with, so I have no experience with it. But it was interesting in that they had found a way to convert it so that they didn't have to restore Windows.
May I add a footnote on that?
Sure.
Since I did most of the R&D at Mensis on how to do the disk layout stuff. Sigurd tested it, but having dig through forums with Linux and FreeBSD setups where they discussed the whole GPT stuff, I think you should be careful with converting a GPT disk layout back to MBR. There are tools to convert in the other direction, MBR to GPT, but there are very few documented procedures to do the conversion in the other way around. Mind you, there could be certain setups or partition types where converting back to MBR might actually blow up the system in theory.
And I would agree with that. I'm not really endorsing this. I'm just saying if you have the problem, there is something out there to at least look at. Because, like I said, I have not tried it, and I don't even have a way to try it. Peer networking, when you're installing it, make sure you either install NetBIOS or NetBIOS over TCP/IP, because otherwise peer networking doesn't work very well. It won't even install. And you can use both of them with Samba if you install peer over NetBIOS. So go ahead.
didn't switch.
Uh,
No?
Well, you may have switched,
Oh.
I just may not have gotten the slide fixed.
Okay.
Okay, some things for configure sys. Remove the drivers you don't need. A lot of them end up not loading because they go out and try to find their hardware and then just simply abort themselves. But that takes time in boot. And there's some of them, particularly anything that you could hot plug that would load themselves. And so you want to look at two things, both drivers where you don't have the hardware at all, or drivers where you don't use the hardware at all. Don't remove the duplicate USB base drivers. You need one for every of the hubs for them. So be careful about that, because it won't boot if you remove them. Go ahead. If you don't install DOS and Windows 3, you still get a bunch of the virtual drivers installed. Now the DOS driver itself, DOS.sys, because you still get the DOS box, which has to be installed. You can't remove them all, but particularly networking throws all the virtual network drivers into the config.sys, and they're not needed. I actually sort my config.sys. I find it's easier for me to read. Logical configure sys sort by Doug Visit is the one I use, which works pretty well. So far it hasn't broken anything. Obviously anytime you sort it, since the config.sys is order dependent, you may end up with a problem. So just keep that in mind. DOS, I changed a few things with. I add the vcompat.sys drive, and I always change to fordos.com for the DOS shell. I also changed the DOS to high UMB from low no UMB. Go ahead.
Well, what is vcompat.sys?
vcompat is a driver that someone wrote that you can get from Hobbs, that it gives you it solves the problem with the large disks where it can't see a huge disk that's over 2 gigabytes. It also solves some timing issues with a bunch of old games and probably with some other types of things.
Could we back up for a second?
Sure.
About the shell equals fordos.com. So I recall seeing this a couple of days ago about some problem.
For OS2 problem.
4OS2, and I'll actually talk about the 4OS2 problems. I've got a slide later on that.
Okay.
So you will. And then video driver issues. A lot of video, well, I don't know how many, but there are systems where when you try to open a DOS in a window, you just get the error that it's not compatible with the video settings. The vsvga.sys with that mile-long switch hooked on it actually fixes it on my system and fixes it on some other systems, except you need to put mode CO80 and then clear. So the mode of 80 and into auto execute that in order for it to work on my particular system. This doesn't work everywhere.
And on some where it doesn't work, you have full screen, but you don't have windowed.
Right.
Okay? And if you're going to run Windows 3.1, you have to actually have a DOS as the mode, and the program is win.com. And then if it's an application icon, whatever, you're going to have that as the application. You can't just select it as a Windows 3.1. It won't run.
Yeah.
But this is a workaround.
You also, on some systems where you can get full screen and not reduced screen, can't remember the key combination, but the key combination that turns it into a window actually works. You can bring it back as a window for the DOS one. It doesn't work for Win.
Alt enter, I think.
Yeah.
Alt home.
Alt home.
Alt home, yeah. The other thing to know is that On some systems, switching to the VVGA sys driver works to fix it. And on some systems, the VXGA.sys has been at least, I've seen reports of that. Since the other one works for me, I haven't tried it. The thing that I'm showing also is, you see all those switches? Those are all the switches for those drivers. So I am kind of curious as to whether some of those might work in some of the other situations. There's some of them that pretty clearly wouldn't, debug being the obvious one, but just something else that's probably worth a try if you've got one of those systems where you're not able to
I
open
would
them.
not recommend started fiddling with those other switches. We actually found it out at Menzies that switch existed for a corporate customer where they actually needed DOS Windows to work. But that was based on analyzing DDK code and an APAR from IBM in which this switch was mentioned. But this stuff is pretty undocumented. So if you use them,
Completely
it might just actually trap the system since it fiddles.
This is a try one at a time thing. That's
Right, it's something that you can try. He's right, it may well trap the system, but lots of things trap my system. Mostly things that I'm trying. Go ahead. Okay, for mice. A mouse versus S mouse. There are some people who say that for ThinkPad you're better off with S mouse. I run A mouse on my ThinkPad. I don't know why it would be better, but if you're having any kind of mouse trouble on a ThinkPad, it's probably worth switching to S mouse. Multipoint exe is a executable that's loaded by WP configure and is part of this S mouse driver. As far as I can tell, with a mouse running, all that it does is take up some low memory and some system cycles and gives you absolutely nothing. I personally just simply rename it so that it won't load. But your mileage may vary on that particular one. The only place that I saw where it seemed to make a difference was with the bleeding edge Mozilla browsers. Taking it out seemed to improve their scrolling performance a little bit. But again, not necessarily endorsing it, just something worth trying. XWP has a drag scroll function, which is what's pictured here. You can see it, mouse button 3 drag scroll, which really means you push down mouse button 3 and then move the mouse and it'll scroll in the direction for anybody who hasn't used it. The reason I pointed out is that I know of at least one application where it doesn't work in line-wise, but it works in amplified mode. So if you have something you really want to use it in and it doesn't seem to work, try it in amplified mode. It's EFTE, by the way, that it doesn't work in line mode. But since I discovered that, I think that it's probably a possibility that there's others that are the same. Okay, go ahead. Thank you. I have a new loader, and one of the nice features of the loader is you can create a RAM disk above the 4 gig limit of memory. On my main computer, I happen to be able to create a 502 megabyte RAM disk that takes exactly none of my RAM, because that's all above the limit. That's because I can only use about 3.5 gigs on that because of other memory uses by devices of various things. And you can use it for lots of things. You can see down here, this is what's in my config.sys to create my temp directories up on Z, which is my RAM disk. It just writes the directory up there, and then I set the directories. You can do a lot of other things with it. Obviously, you could actually put your swap file on it. I tried it, it works. and you can put your print spooler on it. The problem obviously with the print spooler is if you crash, you lose what's ever in the spooler, except there is one feature with it that it will try to have this survive across boots if you check some box that's on there. Yeah, it's, if possible, preserve contents after warm boot. So you might actually be able to get your print spooler to survive, but it's not guaranteed.
It does apparently does a surprisingly good job. I've had traps, I've been even using traps.
For traps.
And when it comes back up, it's actually doing a check disk on my RAM disk because it didn't shut down clean.
Pretty fast check this.
Yeah. Well, the other unfortunate thing is since for HPFS you can't completely turn the cache off. If this is your only HPFS drive, you have a RAM disk that's being cached. Not ideal. So the other thing you can do with this is you can limit the amount of memory, which is useful for trap dumps. In other words, there is a little utility called memlimit, I believe, that I can pull up, and then I can put that I want 500 megabytes of RAM to be visible to the system, and then I can go up and I can stick my USB stick in, and when it traps, my trap dump will only be 500 instead of on my main machine almost 4 gigs. So it makes it a lot easier for that type of thing. Obviously, you're not going to, on a regular basis, run with your memory limited. Xcenter. Obviously, my plug is for LSwitcher, which I maintain as a disclaimer. I always replace the Windows list with LSwitcher. It's for one of the first few things I do. If you don't want an Xcenter, you can actually run the standalone and put its bar either at the top or at the bottom, wherever your Xcenter isn't. I also remove all the unused plugins. You have to understand, all of those DDLs get loaded into the PM process simply by being in that directory. In other words, they don't have to be installed. They all get loaded. So I take them out. I really, XWLAN, I don't know what that letter in the middle is supposed to be. I really recommend you take it out if you don't need Wi-Fi. It, at least in my experience, hangs Xcenter and does some bad things, even if it's not installed. They're basically easy to get rid of. You just rename them. Except this one will end up locked in memory, so you'll have to unlock it to rename it and then restart Workplace Shell or sometimes reboot. I obviously rename WinList because I don't use it as LSwitcher. And again, they're part of that. They're all part of the desktop process. So you're gonna, in other words, you're pretty deep into the operating system of one of these traps. So you don't want to have any of them in there that you don't need or that you don't want. Be careful. You'll find you'll still have widgets on the list, but there are no DDLs you can rename or DLLs you can rename. That's because there's several of them that supply more than one plugin function. Okay. I always add it to the screen border. That just means so I can pull down to the bottom screen border and it'll come up if it's been closed. And you can set it right here to automatically add it to the screen border. And then, and you can also do it in the screen object. You can just take it and pick the border you want and put the object in on that. Okay, next. ArcaOS workplace shift. ExWorkspace is doesn't have all of the features that ExWorkspace itself has. It's closer than the one that came in ECS in that it has the startup folder. So the only things you're missing are the reboot 2 options. In other words, all you get is either reboot or shut down. The reboot 2 options. Interestingly, at least on my system, even with the full ExWorkspace, when I have things in AirBoot on the list, the petition list on AirBoot, there's a little box for petitions to pick them for the reboot options. The ones on AirBoot don't show up. Ones in Boot Manager do. They work though, and they just follow, that's what that setboot/IBA : and then make sure you put it in parentheses, because if there's a space in it, it won't work. But that's just the name of one of my partitions. And all you have to do is just put in whatever the name of your partition is into that, and the boot choices then work. But you have to put them in manually off of AirBoot. At least that's been my experience. I don't know if that's universal, because my system's a little odd in that it has both AirBoot and Boot Manager installed on it. 2 different drives, by the way, 2 different disks. The shutdown folder is also missing. I don't use it, but for others, you have to go to the full ExWorkspace. Turbo folders, which does that odd change of the behavior for associations that takes the filters so that they don't work. In other words, .pdf is no longer associated with anything. You have to associate Acrobat documents with whatever. So probably a good thing that it's not available. And the settings object where you can adjust these is not installed with the ArcaOS version. Oops, keep going. Didn't get that one out either. Autostart, okay. I've lost a slide.
Oh, it was the one before.
No, I've lost actually a couple of slides. Go back.
I cannot go back.
Anyway.
Oh, they are hiding.
They're hiding. Yes.
Oh, there we go. We need that stuff.
Oh, how do you hide?
Just it.
And where is that?
F5? Oh, that might start at the
5?
top.
No, they.
Yeah.
No. How do you get those slides hidden? I didn't realize those were hidden. I mean, I
Yeah,
realize they
I
look
know how to
funny, but
show
I
the
don't know
slide.
how you
Show.
do it.
There's a very easy way to access
Show.
the item.
Which one is both or
Both.
just one?
Yeah.
Show slide.
If you hover
Okay.
over the slide, it should give you controls at the
Shift
bottom of the slide.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Go back.
ArcaMapper, I played with this a little bit to try to get it working. Some issues of it, Autostart has some strange problems. In my case, I couldn't get shares or the servers to show, and the advanced mount options are turned on by default when they probably shouldn't be. Next one. 4OS2 actually will hang the system in certain circumstances when trying to refresh ArcaMapper. SMB configure, it doesn't pull up what you're supposed to, what's in your SMB configure, so it will also overwrite what's in your SMB configure with something different if you're not careful. And verbose logs, files fill volumes very, very quickly. Go ahead. Okay. There are basically 2 ways to restart Samba shares from One of them is net drive's volume persistence, which I recommend over the Autostart. You have to turn it on before mounting any drives. It's part of the configuration file for the net drives, and it's that line, persistent volume configuration equals volume.config. You could name the volumes anything, the volume file anything. You just have to have that line unremarked in the configuration file, and that turns it on. Go ahead. The problem with Autostart is, first of all, it throws up an annoying kind of rectangular window with a throbber on start. And for me, since I've gone to volume persistence, I've never had a problem with it restarting the volumes. Autostart seemed to be about a 50-50 proposition. About half the time it would get them all restarted, and half the time it would throw an error message telling me that it didn't restart something. The one I liked best was that when I used both, what I got was Autostart then graciously told me 10 times in a row that the share had already been started by something. Now, obviously, if I have Autostart in there, that was probably what I intended, and I didn't need to be told that. So, keep going. The last and its best trick was I tried to turn it off. I went to the menu and said, disable. That's what I got. Failure, could not remove Autostart object. And I think that's been everybody's experience.
Yes.
It's simple to fix. All you have to do is take it out of the startup folder. And again, I understand there's Autostart isn't for every situation and for every machine. In other words, it's great on a desktop system that you've got hooked permanently to a network, probably not so great for a laptop. So you want to use it judiciously if you do use it. Keep going. Okay, shares not shown. What I finally found out was you had to update your host file with the name of all your servers and their IP address, and you needed to do it before you tried to do anything else with ArcaOS. And I don't even think this is universal, because there are other people who've said, oh, it works just fine without it.
You know why it doesn't work probably? Some ISP, their routers, provide an external IP address for the DNS server. And there are routers that register the local host name in the router, its IP table. The result then is that when you use a tool like ArcaMapper, that it uses that information from the table in the router. At least I've seen that at work quite frequently with Windows as well, where the networking browsing stops working because the way that it resolves what happens is that the Windows systems, just like Linux on Samba, they broadcast a name over the network where the share can be found. But in order to resolve that NetBIOS name to an IP address, it usually gets that info from your router. So what you could try doing is in the DHCP configuration of your router, tell it to use the DNS server, the IP address of your local router, not of your ISP, and then usually you see that those type of resolve issues disappear.
Okay.
I don't know if that's helpful, but
Maybe for some, I mean, this works just fine once it's in the host file. What I did find though is when I had the problem, if I was running 4OS2 as the shell and I tried to refresh, it would hang in one of the Samba components, which was running as a background process. So basically the solution to that is just don't use 4OS2 when you're using this to configure things. Actually, with the host file fixed, I actually never encountered it. So that may have fixed the whole issue. Go ahead. The advanced mount options, down at the bottom, support Kerberos 5, support NTLM version 1, and support encryption. Interestingly, the first and the third one are not compatible with the second one. In other words, if I'm in version 1, the other two don't exist. So basically, all you're getting out of that is the NTLM version 1. They are on by default, which is a programming error in it. And so what you really need to do before you mount anything, and this is unintuitive to find. This is the second page of the new resources. You see it says page 2 of 2. The only clue on the first page that these might exist is it says page 1 of 2. It says nothing about advanced options anywhere. So you want to make sure that you go in. For most people, you just want to uncheck them all. Some of the older servers, you want to check the support NTLM version 1. Go ahead.
I would, by the way, be very careful because a lot of network attached storage units. I've worked with some QNAPs, and there you can select the level of SMB support that it provides. And even a lot of the current models are still set, despite the whole problem with the ransomware that broke out. It used an SMB1 exploit to encrypt Windows partitions, but a whole lot of these network attached storage units are still set by default to only operate on NTLM1. It's basically
Right.
brain dead, but a kind of note of caution not to switch it off because it might just put your entire drive shares in the dark.
And if it does, you switch it back on.
Yeah.
It's just, they probably, my only point is they probably shouldn't be on by default. You should be making a decision as to whether you want one or all of them turned on. And this is the settings issue. These all get written, or most of these get written to Samba configure, and aren't necessarily what's already in Samba configure, because it doesn't go out and look to pull that information in. And as I remember, that was also problematic to go out and look, that it would create problems also. So that was a design decision. Log level, you see log level as a single word there. It also gets loaded as log level with a space in it. I'm actually not sure which one is correct. And it may be version dependent, but you end up with one with a space and one without a space if you hit apply with logging checked on this and a log level. You can also see that the dialog box doesn't open up to full width. This is the default way it opens up this picture. It needs to be widened because there's a box for the log level, and you can see the box cut off on the name resolve order list. You can't open it up on here, but
User
and again, the verbose log files, I think took about 12 hours to fill the boot disk on one of my machines with the log completely, where you're looking at this error that is telling you that it can't save the any files to disk and is holding them in memory. Just a hint, when you see that, your disk is full. Go ahead. Network printing, ArcaMapper itself does not support printing, and it was never meant to. But there is a SMB printer port which you can install, which works quite nicely. And all you have to do is go to Print Manager, pick the port tab, which is the third tab over, pick Install, and then pick SMB printer port. the SMB print exe, which is what actually takes the spooled output from your application and printing subsystem on this, and then shoots it to the printer on the other side, doesn't work with parallel port, or at least the last version I tried didn't. I won't speak for the very newest because I have not tried the very newest.
Why would it? It sends to network printers, not to local ports.
Well, this is the one that once you're on the local machine, that will send it to a USB port.
SMB printer.
Yeah, that's how it works. It's part of the stack, and it.
Okay.
So it'll print to a USB port off of a machine. This isn't the one that's on the client. This is the one on the server.
Oh, I see. Oh, is that part of the? What product is that part of?
That's part of the server. It's part of SMB server.
Oh, okay.
Okay, sorry for the confusion. But print exe actually works. I can substitute it in the configuration file and it'll print it to the parallel port. The problem is that it doesn't delete the spool files, which once again I end up with a full disk. It was pretty easy. I just wrote a CMD file to delete them and schedule the deletion every night in the middle of the night. Keep going. HiMem. Oh, well, you could probably attempt to mark basically anything for use in high memory. Most of them won't work because of 16-bit functions that are within them, but a few of them might. These were more designed to the Mozilla apps, Apache OpenOffice, ClamAV. You can do it with HiMem.exe, or you can do it with exeheader.exe, but that's version dependent. But the one in the toolkit actually will do it. They're not done by bitwise by default because they're not stable on all systems, or at least that's the warning in their README file. And this is a picture of the HiMem. This is from Apache OpenOffice, where you can just click on one of those and it will set everything for HiMem or disable the high memory. It's probably, particularly if you're running out of memory, worth a try to set them to use high memory. And, you know, if it's stable, fine. If it's not, you'll have to turn them back off.
If you publish these slides on the Warpstock page, could you add one note? I've discussed this with Steve a lot. Never load data segments high. If you want to turn your applications really into a one-armed bandit, start loading the data segments also high. It's usually sufficient to do the code segments of the DLLs. If you do both, in my experience, Firefox will not even start, at least.
I haven't tried it on Firefox. And I did just load the code high for OpenOffice.
Okay.
But this is literally a picture of their folder. Go ahead. You can hide the floppy icons for all of these modern computers that don't have floppy drives. It's just the drive folder properties, which I can't spell apparently. And you just go into the include tab, and then you add those things and you repeat for drive B, and when you open your drive folders, there's no longer an A or a B drive in them. You can also go in and do the reverse and put them back in. Go ahead. The new Mozilla. When it first came out, it was almost unusable because of the way it painted. That was because there's a hardware Vsync Timer that's apparently in video cards, and they were trying to use that to improve the way it synced. Of course, OS 2 doesn't have anything that could vaguely use that. The setting layout frame rate If you set it to 0, it just basically sets it back to the old way, which works reasonably well. That's now set by default in the later versions that have been released, but if you encounter a problem with it, it's something to remember. You can also use a host file. I stole this from Daniel, the address for the, which will help you to block a bunch of ads and stuff like that. All it does is it reroutes them all to 000, which works better. That's also a proxy server that you can install, which works quite well.
By the way, the thing with the host file there, if you go to the website, of course, it's Windows oriented, and they've got this installer and all that, but just so you can see what it looks like, there's the text mode of it, and it's a text mode file, so that's what you want to download. Just download that, and if you've got anything in your hosts file, put it at the head of this.
Yeah, just append this to the end of the host files. If you don't have anything in your host file, you can just replace it.
Yep.
Okay. Some nice features that you may or may not have found. There's a clock sync function, so you can get the exact correct time. You just one of the national time servers and just sync. Daytime is actually the back end.
By default, you can configure it to use almost any backend.
Yeah, but it's by default, yes. And you can also use it to update your time zone settings. You can see the change button at the end of the time zone settings, so that if your time zone, you either set it wrong to begin with, or it's not quite what you would wanted. This is a place that you can easily change it within the system without having to go in and edit config.sys and figure out what all those nice little numbers and letters mean. Okay. HiFX, this basically cleans your any file handles on every reboot or at whatever frequency you set. In other words, this would do it every day, but if you reboot it 6 times on a given day, it would still only have done it once. So it's not really every reboot. It does do a backup, and it can do backup and restore. It backs them up. And it's obviously not a replacement for a full-featured any file cleaner / editor. Okay. Some programs that, at least in my opinion, are missing. Clip View, I would really like to see it or something equivalent to it included.
It's coming. It's coming.
Great. Then a screen capture utility would also be a very nice. I happen to use Gotcha. I'm not married to it as the choice for this, but it's one to look at because it is open source. I'd like to see a simple calendar. By that I mean the sort of calendar that you would hang on your wall so that I can find out what date next Thursday is. And then my bias is that you should include LSwitcher.
Mine too. The alt
Go
tab
ahead.
will switch.
Use the one on IBM works. Nice for printing out.
Yeah, there are various ones that work. It's just
The only problem it has is it happens to be if you have a 28-day February and it starts at the beginning of that week.
okay. So
Every
if
so
you
many
go
years
back,
this
there's
pops
one of
up,
the
you know,
canceled out
one
slide
out
that
of every
we
28
showed.
years.
If you scroll
It
up.
screws up that one page.
Keep going.
Hiding one?
Yeah.
Hide?
It's really that one that I want. The one you just, I don't know what's on the other one. And then you just undo the other one too. Let's,
Right.
because I had told someone that I was gonna go over this and then skipped it.
Yep, so you don't want it as your default shell.
Well,
Because
I
all
do.
kinds of installers and things expect, you know, they
Right.
get the version and they get and it gives you extra information in the version, which screws the hell out of the installer because it doesn't know what to do with the information.
Yeah. I do use it as my default shell. I use it because it works better for me with my development work.
When you say default shell, you mean in your config sys?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, in my config sys.
Right.
But I also, I know what it does.
Yeah.
So I'm not necessarily endorsing that you use it as your default shell.
Right.
VMREX has problems with it. It will throw odd error messages. Usually the programs work without too much trouble, but you will occasionally get a dialog box that says something wasn't quite right. AMPM install failed using it. It simply went into an endless loop. Again, it was something, it's saying, I talked about ArcaMapper behaving badly with it. It's not supported with the ACPI driver from ArcaOS for that sort of, for anything. But it's easy for me to change back to ZMD. I mean, yeah, maybe I'll have to reboot, but I can also, in most lines, just I can just open a 4OS2 command line and then set the command spec back to CMD in it, and then run CMD, and I'm good to go for what I need to do. Part of the reason I like 4OS2 is we have the source, so if there's problems with it, we can actually fix it.
Right.
I was recently talking to Steve about the fact that certain Rex things ran out of track with 4OS2. And I think he actually mentioned to me that he had it fixed or was getting to the point of doing it.
I think he may have it fixed because I have the latest code, and I'm not seeing some of the error dialogues that I used to see. I'm not positive it's fixed, but it looks like that's a possibility, that it may well be in the next release.
He said he had been annoyed about it for years, so.
Yeah, so I think it'll probably get fixed.
But for most people who want less hassle, it's, to have the cmd.exe as your default shell, but have in your prompts, or actually sitting up there that you can just click on, which is how I have it, is 4OS2, which is what I would normally use every time I needed a command shell.
Yeah, if you don't use aliasing and some of the other special features that CMD doesn't have, I would say stick with CMD.
But I do, every time I need a command, I just click on it and I've got one.
The problem is I never remember to do that.
Oh, okay.
There are a
But I
couple of
certainly
other-
use aliasing.
There are a couple of other alternative shells too that run on top of CMD but provide some 4OS2-like features.
Yeah.
Which yet another OS2 shell, and yet another OS2 shell is both.
But if anybody here has not used 4OS2, it's if nothing else, all those nice internal variables are.
Yeah, it has some very nice features that allow you to automate a lot of things that are at least much more difficult to automate in CMD. And then there was one more that I had inadvertently. Oh, this is the infamous FAT32 driver. It's still broken because I can now plug in some sticks and have it trap immediately in the newest version, which is 302.
302 is the latest.
Yeah, revision 302. And this is the new .10 driver. The VFAT support is actually quite nice. It works. I haven't had any problems with it. It seems to work fine. The exFAT I have never tried. And it really is not, even by their admission, is not done and not ready to run. And it won't be shipped with ArcaOS for licensing reasons. And by that I mean the exFAT portion. Right?
Fortunately, my camera, even though it would format it if it's larger than a certain size to exFAT, if you format it externally and stick it in, it will accept it.
Yeah, that was just it. We're trying to figure out because formatting it with itself didn't seem to create the problem, whereas formatting it with something else did create the problem, and we're not quite clear right now what the problem is. Then a couple other things, adding the /n/f to the HCI driver may speed drive access for you, something worth trying. And then there's been all kinds of things about what virtual address limit you should use. 1536 is the default in ArcaOS, but I have seen things that tell you everything from 1028 up to 3076. I really don't have a recommendation other than if you seem to be having memory problems, particularly with Mozilla or
It's fiddle time.
OpenOffice, try making your virtual address limit larger.
Alternatively, if you have boot problems where drivers are running out of memory to load, you might want to lower it.
I think that
What does
only
that
occurs
do?
with Sackload.
It's the amount of memory
issue with it.
and this includes the virtual memory that would be on a disk potentially. It's the amount of memory that that particular process can use, can ultimately be loaded into.
You can set it for each process before you start it. How does it work?
No, it's in the config.sys. You set it once and that's the limit for everything, is the same.
Hey Greg,
Yeah.
isn't that 3072 is the limit?
Yeah, probably.
1024.
Well, you could,
1024 is the bottom.
yeah. I can't type, I've told you guys that.
And he's demonstrated it.
Yeah, repeatedly. So now, any
Does
questions?
it make it hard to be a coder?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, which product do you work on?
You don't have to worry about it. My typing errors get caught by a compiler. At least most of the time.
Actually, I always thought that on OS2 we couldn't get applications to allocate the full virtual address limit that you specified. But at work recently, I was amazed by running on a Windows 10 64-bit that the point of sale software that we make is a 32-bit app. So it can only, in theory, access 4 gigabytes of RAM. But typically, when it gets to about 1.5 gigabytes of consumption of RAM, boom, it's gone. It sounds to the stretch a bit the same as it has on OS2, where you can't get it to allocate the full memory. I don't know why the application keeps blowing up, but it never gets further than 1.5 gig, and that's it. And that can happen quite quickly if it has to get a lot of data in from the database. So on OS2 we're seeing that behavior, but it seems that even on Windows 10 that problem still exists. So I guess we're not in such a bad shape with the memory allocation, judging that Windows 10 blows up as well. Well, the app at least.
Well, I think we're running a little late.
Okay.
I defer other questions for later.